You don't want to help because it's an inconvenience to you and it's an interruption to your schedule. So what do? Jesus tells us that we are to take up our cross daily and follow him. Now, the cross has always been understood as an instrument of death. And so when he says to take up your cross and follow him, it's a call of absolute surrender. He's calling us to die to self daily. But what about when it is inconvenient? What about when the cross doesn't make any sense? I think that we can learn a lot about the inconvenience of the cross when we look at Simon. You know, that guy that helped Jesus carry the cross. He's mentioned in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and each writer submits just one verse, which means that there's 3 verses about Simon, and they all pretty much say the same thing. But when you take the 3 accounts together, we get 3 things that we know about Simon. And number 1, we know he's from Cyrene. So that means that he is either an African or he's a Jew living in Cyrene. Either way, he is a foreigner who's called to take up the cross and carry it. Number 2, he's the father of Alexander and Rufus, which really means nothing to us, but it must have meant something to the audience that Mark is writing to. But then there's number 3, where the scripture says that he was just passing by. That's an interesting phrase. Just passing by. He's minding his own business. He's trying to avoid the crowds, I'm sure. And he's probably just wanting to get back home. And a Roman soldier targets him, orders him to carry the cross. And we can't help but to ask, why? What's the point? Why would you include this one sentence into the text? And if you've ever studied this passage before, I would love to hear your thoughts if you would just put them down in the comments below. And while you're jotting down your thoughts, show your support for accurate biblical truth by clicking on the subscribe button. Now here's my thoughts. The silence of the text allows us to use our imagination to make some observations and to ask some questions. For example, I'm sure that you've got Simon scared to death. I'm sure he's shaking in his sandals. Here he is. He's making his way through the mob. He's minding his own business, and all of a sudden, singled out. Everybody's hooping and hollering, screaming out, crucify, crucified, and you got this beaten, bloodied guy carrying a cross, and now he's targeted. Scared, I'm sure, thinking that he's probably next to die. I also wonder if maybe there was some anger there, you know? Like, what the heck did I do to deserve this? Or, I knew I should have went the other way. Then I also wonder if maybe he's even a little bit angry at Jesus, thinking, you know what, you weak stick, why couldn't you carry your own cross? Or, why did you get me into this? And then I think, well, did he even look at Jesus? Maybe he did. And he feels sorry for Jesus. And so maybe he willingly helps bear that cross. We don't know. For me, the bottom line question would be this. How does Simon feel about being put in a position to help when he doesn't want to help? How does he feel when he's called to carry the cross when it's really inconvenient for him? And then I think, well, how do I respond when I'm put in a position to help when I really don't want to help? You know how it is. You're minding your own business, as I said. You're doing your own thing. You're busy. And somebody catches you off guard and they're like, hey, chappie, can you help me with this for a second? You know, and I would love to say that every time that I'm asked to help, that my heart leaps with joy for the opportunity. But the truth of the matter is that's not the case. You see, there's a lot of times that is really inconvenient. There's a lot of times that it kind of upsets me because it's an interruption to my schedule. And I'm just sharing with you my heart. I'm just being honest with you. And there's times that I don't act very Christian. And there's times that I don't say very Christian things. I mean, you just ask my family. And then, after I settle down a little bit, I get convicted. The Spirit of God reminds me that doing good is not just for the convenient times of life. Paul tells us to not become weary in doing good. And Peter says, let those who suffer entrust their souls to God while doing good. You know what Peter's saying? He's saying, do good even when it's inconvenient. It's what we do. Even when it's inconvenient. And even when it doesn't make sense, we do good. We die to self. For example, we make meals for our neighbor whose cancer is eventually going to take their life. We know full well that meal isn't really going to do anything It's not going to cure that cancer. It's not going to save that life. But yet we still do it. And we donate to charities, knowing that for every one child that gets a meal, there's 10,000 that won't. And we sit beside the bedside of a loved one, suffering with dementia, knowing full well that no matter how long we stay, and no matter how many pictures we look at, they're still not going to remember who we are. This is dying to self, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it doesn't make a difference. And we do it because it's not about us. This is what we have to remember. We're not supposed to try to figure this thing out. You see, a cross isn't a riddle to solve. It's something you pick up and you carry. The cross, the instrument of death, the instrument of pain that enters our lives. And the cross that we carry, it both deforms us and it transforms us. I think that cross is an instrument that is used to transform us into the people that God has created us to be. And so Paul reminds us that we are to bear one another's burdens, after which we just walk away, not knowing what may come next. I mean, like Simon. We don't know anything about Simon, remember. He carried the cross, and for all we know, he walked away, not knowing what Sunday would bring. So the next time that you are called to help when it's really inconvenient, how are you going to respond?